don't go to the gym until you watch this video on how you're going to be able to perfect your training and learn how to train for muscle mass and even strength. Alright, so hey, what is up guys? I'm coming at you with another informational video here. I just got done my session and I figure what better time than to talk about how I train to put on muscle mass. And I mean, even while I'm cutting for a show right now and I'm in prep, you still have to train that way so that you retain your muscle and strengthen it over time. Right, we understand that. So there's a few basic terms that I'm going to go over and explain and how to incorporate them into your training. So I think the biggest one that we should talk about first would be progressive overload. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard this term or even know what it is, right? So the basics of progressive overload is to add the number of reps at a certain weight or add weight over time. Now there's no time period, there's no like you need to do it in a week, it just should happen over time. So naturally, when you're trying to progressive overload, say you're starting with curls, you're doing 20 pounds for 10 reps. You do that for 2 sets, and then you hit 8 the next one, right? So you come in, next time you hit biceps, you get them 20s back out, you hit 12, and then you hit 12 again, and then you hit like 10. That's progressive overload. You have now added reps to that weight that you weren't able to do last time. So in theory, we work through rep ranges, and I'll go over that later, and you take a weight, you work it through different rep ranges until you're really good at it, and then you add on weight, you reset the process. So you do this over and over again, and that's making you stronger, but it's also helping you put on muscle mass and improve all around. Now the goal is to do this with every exercise. So I'm doing lat pull downs, I'm doing bench press even, if you choose to. I'm doing whatever. But your goal is to add reps or add weight over time, and that will lead you to muscle growth and even adding strength onto your muscles, because it's almost one and the same. A lot of people will be like, oh, bodybuilders don't train for strength. But when you're doing progressive overload, you are going to get stronger so you can stimulate your muscles. So how do you progressive overload? Because now we know that's important, we need to do it. So to progressive overload, the first step is going to log all your workouts. Whether it be in your phone, an app, a notebook. I choose a notebook. I write that on my phone and then I copy it all into a notebook, right? And then when I'm designing my workouts, now that next session, I don't have to go in and be like, oh, I don't know what weight I'm gonna lift today. I write it down and I know exactly what weight I should do. I have my rep range planned out and I'm ready to hit a specific weight. This way with a logbook, we're also able to track our progressive overload. So that way you know, like, oh man, everything's not doing good, maybe I should take a deload, or oh man, all my weights are going up, or and this isn't a quick process. You're not going in every session and hitting a few extra reps or going up in weight every time. Sometimes it's even just adding weight but doing only one set with that weight and back offs with the old weight. It's not going to be consistent all the time, and it's also not going to it's not going to shoot. So now let's get into the rep ranges. So normally you can train in really any rep range, but I try not to go over 15 reps or below 6 for hypertrophy range and whatnot. So when you get to that, when I'm starting with a new weight, it's usually 3 by 6 to 10 or 2 by 6 to 10, sometimes even 6 to 8. And then I'll move into like an 8 to 12, and then a 10 to 15, and sometimes a 12 to 15, depending on what I'm doing. So this will allow you, because we're not doing 3 by 12, 3 by 10, we're not doing that. That way we can pick a weight that's really hard, but we can hit 12 our first set, but we can't do that every set. So then, oh man, I only hit 10 the next set, or I only hit 11. And then that progresses, and then we can look at it and go, okay, I can up my rep range because I hit 8 here. So now I can go from 8 to 10 to 15 maybe. And then my last set could be 10 or 11, but not 8 again. Alright, so now that we have talked about progressive overload, which is so important when it comes to your training, I think the next thing we should go into is intensity. Because to really get the best out of your rep ranges and your progressive overload, you need to be able to train intense. So when I say that you need to train intense, you basically need to be 1 to 3 reps shy of failure on all of your working sets. So I'm not talking about your warm-up. Your warm-up should stay easy, feeder sets easy, but when you're actually at your working weight, all of your sets should be really close to failure, sometimes even to failure, because that's going to stimulate the most growth in your muscles, but not overly fatigue you and destroy your body. So when you're able to take your exercises to that point of failure, you are able to get a better workout, which then allows you to progress a little quicker, which backs up your progressive overload. So, just a suggestion, every now and then, take some sets to absolute failure so that you can actually understand your exact amount that you have in you before you fail, because a lot of people misjudge that. So for myself, how I judge my intensity of the set is how quickly I can get it done. All right, here's rep 1, 2, 3, 4, starting to get really hard. 5, even slower. So I'm not slowing down the negative because I'm using the negative, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I'm using, that concentric where it's, 1 second, 1.5, 2, 3 is a long time. And that's showing me that I'm close to failure. All right, so at this point, I feel like there's only one more thing I should really bring up, and that's kind of how to train for hypertrophy. So it's really going to come down to how you lift the weight and following like your muscle fibers and the way they go. And I could do another video on that, but I want to talk about like just how you should lift your weights. It kind of piggybacks on intensity. So when I talk about how you should lift the weight, a lot of that is me talking about time under tension, your concentric, your eccentric part of the lift, and we're talking about like even pausing stuff, working your muscle through shortened and lengthened positions, all stuff like that. So when it comes to shortened and lengthened positions, I'll use an example of the quads. So if you do a leg extension, you're working the quadricep in a shortened position, and it's one of the only ways you really can. Now, if you go into a hack squat, you're going to be working your quad in a lengthened position. Now, you want to be able to hit all your muscles in both positions because they're getting the full work at that point. So that's one thing, work them in shortened and lengthened. Bam, that's part of your hypertrophy. So time under tension. So that's like, okay, we're going to do a 3-second tempo today. 1, 2, 3, bottom of rep, up. So, that's about working your negative so that you can really get a good stretch on your body. I like to do it a lot with really the majority of my exercises at this point, whether it be a dumbbell press to a dumbbell fly, because you just get such a better stretch out of that. And if you look at pros, they're really taking their time on everything. And then you can really explode out of the bottom there. I mean, you don't want to just, but you can just explode and have more power with it, and that's really going to help you out. And you can experiment. Like one day you can do your curls and you can have 5-second negatives, and the other you can have 3. Now you're going to track them differently in your logbook that we talked about, because one's obviously going to be harder than the other. But that time under tension will help you put more stress on your muscle and work it better. So when you're also doing that, you can also add a pause in with your exercises, and even if it's just a quick pause, it'll help. It'll make it harder to hit that coming back up, and it just adds a little bit more difficulty to intensify your workout a little more. All right, so with that, I think I've covered everything that I feel is very important to maximize on your training. I'm talking, hitting your progressive overload throughout the time, training intensely, which backs up your hypertrophy, and then hypertrophy, going slow on your negatives and really getting your time under tension in, because all of that is important. And once you do that, I'm telling you, you will have such vast improvements in your workouts. If you're not doing any of that right now, it will shoot up. I'm telling you. Now, eventually it will mellow out a little bit and you'll just be slower, but if you start, you will be at a better place than you are now if you aren't doing that right now. I'm telling you. But on that note, everybody, I hope you take this into account. If you didn't know any of it, go smash your workouts today. make sure you get some PRs, you know, train intense as you can. Limp out of that gym if it's leg day. Don't be able to drive with one arm up if it's shoulder day, you know? Make it happen, guys. Have a good one. Thank you for watching. Coded Bio for Bucked Up. Have a great day.